Hollywood's golden age was full of glitz, glamour, and a whole lot of bedroom secrets. Behind the camera, some of the biggest stars were just as famous for who they loved and left as for the roles they played. From stolen husbands to scandalous affairs, these 20 old Hollywood actors didn't just break hearts, they made headlines. So who was sleeping with who, and how did it all go down? Stay with us, because the stories only get wilder from here. Elizabeth Taylor, the serial bride with a best friend's husband. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just a movie star, she was a walking, talking tabloid headline. Known for her violet eyes and unforgettable roles in Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Taylor was also infamous for her love life and the wreckage it left behind. Her most notorious scandal, stealing singer Eddie Fisher right out from under the nose of her best friend, actress Debbie Reynolds. At the time, Fisher and Reynolds were Hollywood's golden couple, but that didn't stop Taylor. The affair caused a media frenzy, and even worse, it ended a friendship that had once seemed unbreakable. And yet, Taylor didn't stop there. She married Fisher after he divorced Reynolds, only to divorce him a few years later. But in a twist, straight out of a soap opera, Taylor and Reynolds made peace decades later. "We just said, let's call it a day, and we got over it," Reynolds said in an interview. Taylor's love life was filled with ups and downs, including 7 marriages, 2 of them to actor Richard Burton, whom she called the love of her life. Their relationship was so fiery, it burned through 2 weddings, 2 divorces, and countless tabloid pages. She once famously said, "I've only slept with men I've been married to. How many women can make that claim?" That may be technically true, but 7 husbands and countless headlines later, Elizabeth Taylor became Hollywood's ultimate heartbreaker. Now, if you thought Taylor's scandal was wild, wait until you hear what Diana Dors had hidden behind her mansion doors. Diana Dors, Britain's Marilyn with a secret sex tape empire. If Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood royalty, Diana Dors was its wild cousin across the pond. Nicknamed the British Marilyn Monroe, Dors wasn't just famous for her curves, she was infamous for what happened behind closed doors. At her grand mansion, Dors reportedly threw lavish parties with guests from every corner of showbiz. But here's the shocking part. Some of those parties were allegedly secretly filmed, catching guests in compromising situations without their knowledge. It was a scandal waiting to explode. One guest later described the home as a den of decadence in pink. Dors didn't seem to care what people thought. She married 3 times, had affairs with everyone from actors to aristocrats, and laughed in the face of critics. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury once called her a wayward hussy, a label she wore like a badge of honor. Later in life, Dors reinvented herself as a television personality, using her scandalous past as fuel for her fame. "I was the only sex symbol Britain had," she once said, "and if that meant being naughty, well then, I was very naughty indeed." As the cameras faded, so did Diana's star, but her reputation for drama, desire, and danger lived on. Speaking of danger, our next actress took rebellion to a whole new level, and she didn't care who heard about it. Tallulah Bankhead, wild, witty, and sexually unapologetic. Tallulah Bankhead wasn't just a rebel, she was a revolution in heels. Known for her sharp wit, smoky voice, and scandalous one-liners, Tallulah lived her life like it was one big party. "My father warned me about men and booze," she once joked, but he never said anything about women and cocaine. Bankhead didn't care about rules, on stage or in the bedroom. She was proudly bisexual, loudly outrageous, and unapologetically honest about her many lovers. She once claimed to have had more than 500 conquests, and she had one strange requirement. They had to be as well endowed as actor John Barrymore. Yes, you read that right. She even married actor John Emery briefly, mainly because he looked like Barrymore. For Tallulah, sex wasn't scandal, it was survival. Her love life was chaotic, but it kept her spirit burning through career highs and lows. But while her bedroom stories made headlines, her acting was no joke. From Broadway to Hollywood, she delivered powerhouse performances, often overshadowed by her off-screen antics. In many ways, Tallulah walked so future rebels could run. But if you thought she was wild, wait till you meet the silent-era icon who loved like a teenager and vanished before her time. Clara Bow, the it girl with a heart too big for Hollywood. Before Marilyn Monroe or Brigitte Bardot, there was Clara Bow, the original it girl. She lit up the silent screen in the 1920s and early 30s with a kind of raw energy that made audiences fall in love instantly. But Clara loved just as hard and just as fast as she performed. She had a bad habit of confusing romance with destiny. Every boyfriend felt like the one. She got engaged and unengaged more times than anyone could count, including flings with stars like Gary Cooper and director Victor Fleming. One of her crushes even led to a scandalous lawsuit after a doctor's wife accused Clara of destroying her marriage. Bow wasn't trying to cause trouble. She just believed in love in the most hopelessly romantic way. But Hollywood doesn't treat soft hearts kindly. Her fame burned hot and fast, and by the time she was 28, she retired, worn out by the gossip and rumors. She once said, "I do not want to be remembered as the girl who could act a little, but as the girl who lived." And live she did. Too fast, too brightly. But if Clara was a dreamer, the next woman on our list was a daredevil. One who flirted with fame, death, and the devil himself. Jane Mansfield, bombshell of the boudoir and the black arts. Jane Mansfield was more than just a blonde bombshell. She was a firecracker in a pink Cadillac. She didn't just walk into a room, she exploded into it. With a 40-inch bust and a personality to match, Mansfield became a pop culture icon in the 1950s. But beneath the glam, her private life was pure chaos. Rumors flew that she had affairs with everyone from President John F. Kennedy to Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. LaVey was obsessed with her, but Mansfield played coy. She would call him from her home, teasing him over the phone while her friends giggled in the background. When asked about it, she smirked and said, "I don't know anything about black magic, but my dress is tight enough." Mansfield loved attention, and she knew how to get it. Her life was filled with lovers, parties, and tabloid drama. But tragedy struck in 1967 when she was killed in a horrific car crash at just 34 years old. Her sudden death shocked Hollywood and sealed her status as a doomed sex goddess. She left behind 5 children, including future actress Mariska Hargitay, and a legacy of boldness, beauty, and bawdy rebellion. Next up is a woman whose charm was legendary, but her love life turned into a storm of secrets, madness, and betrayal. Vivien Leigh, beauty, madness, and adultery in a velvet dress. Vivien Leigh was elegance incarnate. With her delicate beauty and magnetic screen presence, she etched her name into Hollywood history as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. But behind the poise was a woman who chased love with the same intensity she gave her performances, and that pursuit often led to heartbreak and betrayal. She didn't wait for romance to find her. Vivien saw Laurence Olivier on stage and boldly declared, "That's the man I'm going to marry." The only problem? Olivier was already married. But Leigh didn't care. She followed him to Capri, to rehearsals, even on vacation. Eventually, the pursuit turned into an affair, and soon after, a marriage. But this love story wasn't the happy ending it looked like from the outside. Their relationship, passionate and obsessive, was marked by long separations, screaming fights, and deep wounds. Vivien suffered from bipolar disorder, a condition poorly understood at the time. Her highs were electrifying, her lows devastating. The world watched as she unraveled, on stage, on screen, and in her marriage. Olivier once described living with her as being on a roller coaster without knowing when it would stop. Their union finally ended, not with a bang, but a slow, aching fizzle. And though Lee would go on to win another Oscar for A Streetcar Named Desire, the cracks in her soul never quite healed. In the end, she died alone, still carrying a locket with Olivier's picture inside. Vivien Leigh's love life was many things: scandalous, obsessive, chaotic, but never ordinary. And speaking of extraordinary chaos, our next star was a woman whose love turned lethal, or so the tabloids claimed. Lupe Velez, the Mexican Spitfire with a nose for infidelity. Lupe Velez blazed through Hollywood like a wildfire, brilliant, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Nicknamed the Mexican Spitfire, she broke stereotypes long before the industry was ready, landing roles that should have gone to white actresses and demanding attention wherever she went. But Lupe's private life? That's where the real drama unfolded. She fell deeply in love with actor Gary Cooper, but jealousy poisoned their romance. Lupe was certain Cooper was having an affair, not with another woman, but with actor Anderson Lawler. According to legend, she even unzipped Cooper's pants at a dinner party just to sniff them. "I smell his cologne," she reportedly hissed, referring to Lawler. Whether or not that actually happened, the story stuck and cemented her place in the tabloid Hall of Fame. Lupe didn't just embrace scandal, she created it. She flaunted her affairs, fed outrageous quotes to gossip columnists, and never apologized for being loud, proud, and completely unfiltered. But beneath the bravado was a woman who felt deeply. When her final lover abandoned her, and possibly their unborn child, she spiraled. Urban legend says she died with her head in a toilet after a failed suicide attempt. But in truth, she passed away peacefully in bed. The rumors were cruel, but she had stoked them in life. "I'd rather die than fade away," she once said. And sadly, she got her wish. While Lupe stirred gossip with raw emotion, our next star wore detachment like armor and turned sexual freedom into an act of rebellion. Louise Brooks, silent star who made noise behind the scenes. Louise Brooks was the kind of woman who didn't ask for permission. She simply did what she wanted and let the rest of the world catch up. She began as a dancer, then lit up the silent screen with her hypnotic gaze and angular bob. But while audiences adored her, Louise despised the film industry. "Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul," she once said. Brooks's career was brief, but her sexual legacy loomed large. She famously walked out on her contract with Paramount, traveled to Europe, and indulged in affairs with artists, musicians, and intellectuals. Her lovers weren't just men. Women, too, found themselves drawn into her web of cool detachment and smirking charm. She married twice, both times walking away without looking back. Brooks had no interest in being tamed. When the offers dried up, she didn't beg for a comeback. Instead, she slipped into obscurity and eventually into poverty. But decades later, critics rediscovered her, filled with brutal honesty and unapologetic reflections, turned her into a feminist icon. "I've had everything and nothing," she once wrote, "and everything was better." Her flame burned out young, but her influence smolders to this day. And if you think that's wild, wait until you hear about two sisters who shared more than just DNA. They shared everything. Daisy and Violet Hilton, Siamese starlets with separate affairs. Daisy and Violet Hilton weren't just sisters. They were conjoined twins, joined at the lower spine, and they lived a life stranger than fiction. Born in the UK and thrust into American vaudeville, they were paraded around as a sideshow attraction. But when they hit Hollywood, the spotlight changed everything. They starred in cult classics like Freaks and Chained for Life. But behind the scenes, it was their love lives that drew headlines. Despite being physically inseparable, Daisy and Violet each had their own romantic desires, and they pursued them with ferocious intensity. One of their first major affairs ended in disaster. A married man left his wife for Daisy, causing a scandal that splashed across newspapers. Violet later tried to marry a musician, Jack Lewis, but 21 states refused to grant them a marriage license. Why? Because marrying one twin technically meant marrying both. That didn't stop the sisters from living fully. They drank, danced, partied, and took lovers wherever they found them. Some say they even had a child, though that's never been confirmed. Their later years were far less glamorous. As fame faded, they ended up working in a North Carolina grocery store, too proud to ask for help, too unique for the world to handle. When they died, it was quietly, side by side, found days after passing, still together, just as they had always been. But where the Hilton sisters lived in the shadows, our next actress embraced the spotlight and burned out under its weight. Barbara Lamar, the beautiful lady of sorrow. Barbara Lamar looked like a silent film goddess, and for a few years she was. With haunting eyes and a face like marble, she stormed onto the screen in the 1920s, starring in 27 films and captivating a generation. But it wasn't just her acting that drew attention. It was her life off camera. Barbara was no stranger to love. She once said, "I live to love, and I love to live," and she meant it. She cycled through husbands like wardrobe changes, took on lovers with abandon, and became a muse to poets, painters, and bootleggers alike. Her scandals were the stuff of legend. One of her early marriages ended when her husband was arrested for fraud. Another came to light only after she fled with a dancer, turning her personal life into a dizzying tabloid spiral. But Barbara never seemed ashamed. She wore her heart on her sleeve and let it break in public. The press dubbed her the girl who is too beautiful, a curse disguised as praise. Her body eventually gave out before her spirit did. At just 29, she died from complications believed to be tied to tuberculosis, though whispers of drug abuse and heartbreak still linger. Hollywood buried her as a cautionary tale, but her fans remembered something more. A woman who burned too bright, too fast, and never dimmed for anyone. Coming up next, we meet a star who defied gender norms, seduced both legends and loners, and lived as if rules were just suggestions. Marlene Dietrich, androgynous angel of affairs. Marlene Dietrich wasn't just a star. She was a living contradiction. With her smoky voice, tailored suits, and bedroom eyes, she redefined what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood. She didn't play by the rules of the studio system or of polite society, and she certainly didn't play by the rules of love. She seduced both men and women with ease, moving through affairs like a shadow through a candlelit room. Her rumored lovers included actor John Gilbert, screen siren Greta Garbo, and even Edith Piaf. Dietrich wasn't hiding anything. She simply lived without fear. "I love people. It's not their gender that matters to me, it's their soul." That fearless attitude made her a magnet for the misunderstood and a threat to the moral guardians of her time. Her androgyny wasn't just a fashion choice, it was a statement. She wore suits, smoked cigars, and kissed women in public long before it was remotely acceptable. Despite her many affairs, she remained married to the same man, Rudolf Sieber, for decades. Their relationship was unconventional. They lived separately and saw other people, but they never divorced. That, too, was pure Dietrich, loyal in her own way, but utterly impossible to possess. Her life was equal parts allure and mystery. Even her death in 1992 couldn't dull her legend. She had lived her way, and that was the ultimate rebellion. But while Dietrich moved like mist through romance, our next star wielded her sexuality like a scalpel, cutting through society's expectations with beauty, brains, and a bit of bedroom espionage. Hedy Lamarr, beauty, brains, and bedroom talk. When you think of old Hollywood bombshells, Hedy Lamarr's face might come to mind first. But behind those perfectly sculpted cheekbones was one of the most fascinating minds Tinseltown ever tried to tame. Hedy was called the most beautiful woman in the world, and the industry made sure to cast her that way. But what people didn't see was the woman inventing new communication systems between takes, literally. Alongside a friend, she co-created a frequency-hopping technology that would later help shape modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And yet, her love life was almost more groundbreaking than her inventions. Lamarr was married 6 times and had a trail of high-profile lovers behind her. There were whispers of risque home videos made during her marriages and suggestions that she used seduction as a form of leverage in both business and politics. Some insiders even claimed she traded secrets in bed during World War II. "I have been chased by men and by war," she once said. "Both leave you breathless, but only one steals your soul." Her dual legacy, Hollywood temptress and hidden genius, has only recently begun to be appreciated in full. And while her mind helped change the future, her beauty and boldness made her unforgettable. From Hedy's calculating charm, we move to a woman whose sultry exterior masked a whirlwind of emotion, chaos, and passion that refused to be tamed. Ava Gardner, the barefoot Contessa's bear, all love life. Ava Gardner never apologized for who she was, and that was exactly what made her so dangerous. With her deep green eyes and husky southern drawl, she could make any man lose his mind, and often did. She married Mickey Rooney, then bandleader Artie Shaw, then the volatile Frank Sinatra, each relationship more turbulent than the last. But marriage didn't stop her from falling in love again. And again. Her affairs spanned continents and co-stars, including a rumored fling with bullfighter Luis Miguel Dominguín and actor Robert Mitchum. Gardner was bold, unpredictable, and unapologetic. "I either write the script or I walk out," she once said, and she meant it. Her life was filled with intense highs and devastating lows. Alcohol often fueled her recklessness, but passion was always the fire behind her choices. Even Sinatra, a man known for his ego, was reduced to begging after their divorce. "She's the only woman who ever left me," he reportedly told friends, "and I never got over it." Ava fled Hollywood in the 50s, choosing the chaos of Madrid and London over the control of studio handlers. In the end, she died alone, but never lonely. Her story etched into every sultry gaze and every shattered heart she left behind. From Ava's soulful destruction, we descend into a life that flickered out even faster. A blonde so bright, she burned herself out at the peak of her power. Jean Harlow, platinum blonde with a tarnished love life. Before Marilyn, before Jane, there was Jean Harlow, the original blonde bombshell. With platinum hair and a laugh like champagne, she became the screen's first true sex symbol. But behind the glamour was a girl who loved too quickly, trusted too easily, and paid the price for it. Harlow's relationships read like a cautionary tale. Her second husband, MGM producer Paul Byrne, died just months after their wedding, reportedly by suicide. But rumors swirled for years. Was it a cover-up? Was Jean somehow involved? The scandal nearly derailed her career, but instead, it cemented her mystique. She continued to date within the studio system, falling for co-stars and moguls alike. The press ate it up, and MGM leaned into the chaos, using her romantic life as part of her public persona. She was sold as both innocent and risque, a walking contradiction that audiences couldn't resist. Harlow once joked, "Men like me because I don't wear a girdle." But what she didn't say is that they also liked her because she didn't play hard to get. She lived in a world of silk sheets and whispered promises, always on the edge of something tragic. At just 26, Jean died suddenly of kidney failure, leaving fans shocked and studios scrambling. Her beauty may have opened the door, but her vulnerability and the mystery surrounding her made her immortal. And if Harlow represented tragedy, our next star turned sexual freedom into comedy and laughed all the way to the bank. Mae West, Say It With a Wink, and a Bedroom Invitation. Mae West didn't walk into Hollywood. She sauntered in with a wink and a double entendre. Her brand was sex, and she knew it. But unlike the ingenues who played dumb, Mae played everyone, and won. She was in her late 30s when she broke into film, unheard of at the time, but her sharp tongue and unapologetic confidence made her a force no one could ignore. "When I'm good, I'm very good," she purred on screen. "But when I'm bad, I'm better." West reportedly had hundreds of lovers, mostly younger men, whom she referred to as her projects. Her real romance, though, was with herself, and with the freedom she created for women just by existing. She made sex funny, powerful, and entirely on her terms. Even as she aged, Mae refused to go quietly. In her 70s, she was still starring in films surrounded by muscle-bound boy toys. She'd look straight into the camera and flirt with the audience like it was 1933 all over again. "I'll try anything once, twice if I like it, 3 times to make sure," she said. And audiences believed her. Mae West didn't just break the mold. She seduced it, rewrote it, and walked off with a paycheck. But before we wrap up, there's one more woman, Hollywood's silent queen, who slept with power and tried to control it, until power turned on her. Gloria Swanson, silent queen with a loud private life. 400 words. Gloria Swanson wasn't just a silent film legend. She was a symbol of old Hollywood power, passion, and scandal. At the height of her fame in the 1920s, she commanded the screen with her dramatic flair and expressive beauty. But off-camera, she lived with equal intensity, racking up headlines for a love life that was as cinematic as her roles. She was married 6 times and had more affairs than the studios could spin. But none was more infamous than her relationship with Joseph P. Kennedy. Yes, the father of future President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy wasn't just her lover. He was also the financier of her films. Their affair blurred the lines between business and pleasure, and though it was kept quiet from the public, Hollywood insiders knew the truth. Swanson was no victim. She knew how to wield her influence. She once said, "I have decided that when I am a star, I will be every inch and every moment a star." And she was. She used her body, her brain, and her presence to get what she wanted. But in doing so, she also made powerful enemies. As the silent era faded and talkies took over, so did the studio control. Swanson's independence made her a threat. Her fame dimmed in the 30s, but like any true diva, she made a thunderous return in 1950 with Sunset Boulevard, playing a faded star who couldn't accept that her glory days were over. It was eerily close to her real life, and it reignited her legend. Gloria Swanson's love life wasn't just tabloid fodder. It was part of her mythos. She didn't settle for being someone's muse. She was the director of her own desires. And while many actresses were punished for their sexuality, Swanson turned hers into an empire. Her story closes this list not because it was the most scandalous, but because she understood the game better than anyone else. In an era when men wrote the rules, Gloria Swanson rewrote them, in lipstick, contracts, and unforgettable glances. These old Hollywood icons may be gone, but their wild love lives still echo through Tinseltown's history. If you enjoyed this dive into scandal, romance, and unforgettable drama, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story like this. Thanks for watching.